Hey everyone, welcome to week 8 of the course and the halfway point in the semester. This week's video is going to be a little longer because I want to go through the areas and resources of week 8 that I want to focus on in order for you to learn about visual rhetoric, a new concept that you can apply with the traditional rhetorical appeals and that use traditional rhetorical appeals but through visuals or image-based ideas. So if you notice, the first resource is a textbook, an open electronic resource from the University of Minnesota. And I just love their chapter about visual rhetoric, so I decided to bring that in. We're going to be jumping around the chapter a little bit, so we're just going to be looking at certain sections this week. The first one is the first section that says, in a visual culture, visual rhetorics are common and change forms. So you want to read through this section and take a look at the videos that are underneath as an example. The first one they use is a commercial from the 1950s that is advertising real estate in a suburban environment. Pay attention to what feels dated and what kind of visuals they're using in order to persuade people to buy these properties. Pay attention to the ideas that they're selling, the visuals that they're selling, and how that ties into emotion or logic or builds credibility. Then go through the section underneath and start thinking about how we've commented on some of those things since the 50s and how meaning has changed when it comes to suburbia and selling the quote-unquote American dream. Then we want to skip down to the next section, which is visual culture is where rhetorical reading happens. Go over the definitions of dominant, negotiated, and oppositional readings with the examples that they use in the text to get an idea of how things like meme culture, social media posts, clickbait articles, and different kind of negotiated media exists in the 21st century and relies on sort of a visual language that we learn as we go now that we're in the internet age. Then you want to skip towards the end, where the last two sections that I want you to go over are monumental rhetoric, or how architecture and monuments kind of directly reflect whatever the event, cause, or idea it is that they're meant to be a monument for, and image events, which are becoming increasingly more popular in the digital age. Started in the late 20th century, they are almost purely image-based, auditorily based, and they are meant to represent a cause or make a statement on a cause, only using very powerful visuals that disrupt everyone's everyday life. Okay? The second source that's in week 8 is a resource that helps us understand how in advertising and persuasive mediums, color psychology is brought in. What this means is that subconsciously, colors in our minds kind of convey different things. For example, if you have a muted blue, it's meant to convey sort of a sense of calm, and we experience that as sort of a calming force. Corporations and people who are trying to persuade us through visuals are going to be conscious of how colors and how colors in different combinations can help persuade people, even subconsciously, without them knowing, to try and get their message across. So take a look at that handout. It'll go over a lot of those visual psychology, color psychology concepts in an easy, digestible way. The third thing that I have is an example of how to combine the written rhetorical appeals with visual reinforcement to create more rhetorical appeals through Xavier Cortada's speech about how art can create community change and even start getting people aware and changing things about the now very urgent issue of climate change. So take a look at that speech. It's a TED Talk like some of the other resources that we've looked at, but it is a great example of how you combine visuals with your speech to create something more powerful. Finally, we have the discussion post. Discussion post 8 deals with, on page 479 in your book, the essay, The Fast and the Fashionable, How Your Closet Contributes to a Global Crisis. This discussion board indicates a sort of transition from purely rhetorical analysis to the last unit of the course, which is argumentative writing and persuasive writing for ourselves. The first two questions are familiar, looking at the rhetorical situation and appeals. And the third and fourth questions start moving into the bigger concepts that we're going to be considering now, which is how do visuals help people be more persuasive because of the contemporary sources that we deal with every day being more visual and sometimes more visual than text? And do you agree with Barnes's argument? This is going to be something we have to consider for the rest of the semester. How does this source describe the context or history of the issue? Does it persuade you? And what other information do you need in order to make an informed argument or stance on an issue? Because, of course, you don't want to just base your entire opinion off of one source. Now you want to start thinking about, like we did in source evaluation and like we're doing in rhetorical analysis, what other sources and issues do I need to research? And what techniques am I going to be looking out for that people are going to try and use to get me on their side? And are they successful? I know this sounds probably like a lot of information, but it is pretty digestible and in different forms so that you don't get as exhausted throughout the week. But if you're having any confusion or if you need any clarification on any of the resources, please reach out through email or make an online office hours appointment. We can negotiate the schedule through email so that I can go answer anything in depth, go over any of the resources, or of course, the discussion board. The last thing you want to consider, obviously, is working on your rhetorical analysis final draft that is now open for week 9. Take a look at the notes that I give you on your rhetorical analysis rough draft and use those moving forward into the final sections of the rhetorical analysis. So again, reach out through email, make an office hours appointment if you need extra clarification, and I look forward to reading your discussion posts and your rhetorical analysis rough drafts this week.